Good day, good people. You're listening to Lifting the Veil. I'm your host, Carrie Lee. Today is the 13th of February, 2012. At the beginning of the year, I did a few interviews with Thomas Sheridan. What sparked a couple of those interviews was the initial interview I did with Karen Sawyer from the ARC convention, which is the Authentic Research Community. They're holding their second annual art convention, March 3rd and 4th, at the Chapel Arts Centre in Bath, UK. And in order to help Karen promote this, because I think she's just brilliant, the muse that she is, I wanted to do a few more shows. I was able to do a couple more with Thomas Sheridan, who is absolutely brilliant and a pleasure to have on. And tonight, I am joined by the incredible Kevin P. Miller, writer, producer, and director. You may know him best from Generation RX. Welcome, Kevin.
My goodness, what an intro. You're so very kind, Carrie. Thank you.
You're welcome. It's very deserved. So how are you this evening?
I've had a long day. Went to bed at 2:30, got up at 6:30 this morning, and have been at it ever since, writing and researching and editing sound. And, so in other words, it's been a fantastic day.
Lots accomplished, and that's what we like to hear.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, you're going to be joining, and this isn't the first time that you've been at ARC. You were at ARC last year.
I was, and last year's was a little bit of a different kind of a presentation for me, but it was my first introduction to the lovely people in Bath, UK, and there were people from all over the world, we learned. I mean, there were literally people from as far away as the Middle East and all throughout Europe and Asia. And so it's an amazing gathering of people. We'll have to get you there next year, Carrie. And,
I have to say that I am tempted to jump on a plane this time.
I'll tell you what. I mean, I know for me that it was a life-changing experience because I speak to lots of crowds of academics and people that come to see my films, etc. But when you get this group of individuals together who are free thinkers and just wonderfully diverse and rich, the interactions are incredible. And there's a buzz in the room for every presentation and at the nighttime gatherings. And it's a real wonderful, very natural community of people who respect one another. So we know that's not too common. So
no.
We can take advantage of that whenever possible. But yes, the ARC convention is March 3rd and 4th, and I can't wait to go back.
I can't wait to see what comes of it. I know Karen does an absolutely fantastic job organizing this event, and I was really pleased with what I saw go on last year. Now, what was your overall, what exactly did you go into last year in your seminar as opposed to what you're going to be going into this year?
Well, last year was a little bit different because I was trying to introduce the idea to people that we can be truth tellers in a dangerous age. And there are so many resources that are available to people, and I really wanted to share, since I've been a filmmaker for 25 years just about, and I've been a writer since I was a child, I wanted to share some of the techniques at getting at and getting to information that many times is hidden from us, or people think that the information is hidden. Now, for a lot of my films, I've literally spent weeks in the bowels of the National Archives in Washington, D.C. to unearth documents or even old film footage and those kinds of things. But I wanted people to know that you don't physically always have to do that, that even with simple remedies that are available to everyone online, whether it's Twitter or Facebook or Tumblr or a lot of the social media sites, that there are opportunities to glean information from very powerful governments and organizations and individuals and groups and entities that hold great sway over our lives. So I went into ways to use hashtags and research search terms for people that they could literally use on something as simple as Twitter to find governmental agencies, or perhaps, let's say the World Health Organization, or if you care about free trade, the various free trade organizations, and how you can cut hours or days or weeks or months off of a search and go get, maybe not legitimate information, but information that is being propagandized, if you will, by these various organizations. So it was a really fascinating discussion, and one of the things that I heard from a lot of people afterwards was, oh my God, is this guy really going to talk to me about Twitter? And I understood where they were coming from, but they're not thinking about, they're thinking of maybe the lowest common denominator aspects of Twitter and not the potential for research and for connecting with individuals in the way that I was laying out. So yeah, I think it was pretty eye-opening for a lot of people, and I know that many of them have corresponded with me since saying that they are turned on to it now and they get what I was talking about and they're actually implementing it in their own lives.
And it's making their research a little bit easier then.
Oh, absolutely. And it does. Because, again, the big thing with Twitter, and I've been a member for 3 years of Twitter, at least, and I actually joined Twitter a year or so before I ever joined Facebook, because I was interested in the challenge of putting everything into 140 characters when there's so much to communicate. But,
exactly.
I'm an old student journalist, an old journalist, and so I like writing headlines and getting people's attention, and so it's a combination of things on how to use those 140 characters in the most efficacious way, of course, and these hashtags ideas, which are basically like search words. So you could go in right now into Twitter, and you could put in the search bar, you could put hashtag for sacred geometry, if you wanted to. Or conflicts of interest in medicine, and all of these things will pop up, or bird flu, or swine flu, or it's infinite, and
Definitely.
Immediately you are getting at least a very raw file of thousands of people, many times again, professors or scientists or people at the National Institutes of Health or your own Health Canada or the FDA or whomever, and finding out what the feed is. So it's really rife with possibilities, and it's made my life even a little easier, if you can believe that.
Well, and in all honesty, as a bunch of, I don't know what I want to say, truth seekers or just seekers and knowledge seekers, just seekers in general, it's very difficult. We find ourselves bashing our heads against walls sometimes trying to come to truth, and there's varying levels of truth. So it's good that you're putting positive tools out there for people to use in order to get to that supposed truth a little bit easier.
Well, one of the things, Carrie, is that it's when you do as much medical research as I've been doing over the last 20 years, and by the way, that's not all that I do, but I've gotten sucked into this vortex. So, but I care immensely about the homeless and the poor and race relations and human relations and international issues and all kinds of things. But, one of the things that when you're looking at these things and you're looking for scientific studies in the immense proportions that I was in Generation RX, you go to these sites and there are a few monopolies that hold sway over the entire scientific study. So in Canada or in the United States or throughout Europe or Asia or anywhere else, most of these studies are at least partially paid for by taxpayer money. So there's a bill right now that's being put around in the United States seeking to reverse this, saying if the public pays for it with their own dollars, then they own it.
As it should be.
As it should be, indeed. And so, in my case, what you go to is you go to find these studies, and then they say, well, you can join for a year at $1,882, or you can join for a month at $188, or you can join for, you can just download this article for, $35. And so you can imagine, and by the way, you only have a paragraph or two to evaluate its worth. And so you can imagine how many dollars that I've spent personally just because I demand to see whether there's integrity in that science at all.
Searching and searching when we all know that there isn't very much of it at all.
Well, isn't that the truth? So, I mean, this has been a way that I can get my hands on other scientific studies that are perhaps not published at the same level, or even older studies that are at least free that I can go and look at and don't have to purchase. They're the same study, but I found another way to get to them. And so this is critical information in the era that we live in, whether it's, one being concerned in Canada about Bill C-36 or Bill C-17, the anti-terrorism bill, or the bills that, that are affecting the European Union so dramatically right now regarding free trade and economics, or speaking of Canada again, or the EU Canada Free Trade Act. The
North American Union.
Yeah, well,
doesn't that sound like fun?
Well, and the other aspect of tying Canada into the European Union. And people don't understand what that means, that there are language in Canadian bills right now that have been passed that make it possible for the EU and interest groups within the EU and the United Nations and the World Health Organization, and no, I am not kidding or exaggerating, that they can actually, because Canada is a signatory on free trade deals, these decisions could be made at Codex Alimentarius or at the World Health Organization, and they could literally make a ruling and circumvent Canadian Parliament. That's not a joke. It's in the bill. Go read Bill C-36 in Canada, as I have done. So these are real issues, and people need to know how to access information that has integrity, so that they can, create a firestorm around these things behind those sleepy parliamentarians in Ottawa and throughout the world, and to hold them accountable, saying, wait a minute, you mean you're selling off my sovereignty for an interest group that's tied to a free trade agreement, and, they've got control over my sovereignty and my economic life and my health concerns? I don't think so.
See, this is the thing that bothers and worries me the most, is the idea of the whole sovereignty. It's almost a myth anyway, to think that the countries have any to begin with.
Have you ever seen my film about Canada, a short film called A Question of Sovereignty?
Yes, I have.
And it's one of those things. I love Canada, as you can tell, but I mean, I grew up many summers there as a child because I lived off the banks of Lake Erie. So that's...
Really?
The shortest point across is only 38 miles to get to Ontario. So I spent a great number of lovely summers, and I had many friends growing up who were Canadian. So I developed this Canadian sensibility in and around these friendships and this admiration for the differences between our countries. And so, it just becomes an opportunity for people to understand that there are people out there that are looking at the larger issues, and that the very things that we admire about Canadians vis-a-vis being different from Americans in particular are things that are also an Achilles heel potentially.
Definitely.
So that we believe in our government and it might say that in that language. It allows the WTO or the WHO to circumvent Parliament, but they would never do that, that kind of assumption, because Canadians are so loving and trusting and generally wonderful people. So you need to put the information in people's hands so that they can see for themselves that this language is in there, and this guy, Kevin P. Miller, and all the rest of these people that are talking about it are not exaggerating one iota about it.
Well, and it's hard, see, as much as Canada is this loving, trusting country, it makes us all that more apathetic in a more docile way.
Well, I can't disagree, except that I will say that some of the most brilliant people whom I know on this planet, present company included, are Canadians, and that that they care on a root level in a different way. And we're talking in majorities here, of course, but
oh, I have to agree with you, honestly. I mean, I can't say that we're all tired and sleepy.
No, and I've felt this engagement, the wonderful aspect of what you bring to your show, which is having a conversation around coffee and maybe dessert or something. And this idea that we can get into important philosophical and political issues, and that we can stretch the boundaries maybe of our comfort without screaming and yelling at one another, and honoring and respecting that person's viewpoint. So
definitely. And that's something that's it's something that takes time to craft within yourself, the ability to not take offense to certain things, right?
Oh, yeah, and I think with age, I think I've gotten better with it. I mean, I always have tried in my own way, Carrie Lee, to when producing a film about the homeless 20 years ago that aired, which raised about $1 million in one showing on one local TV station in Cleveland, Ohio.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it was very cool. But even then, that made people angry. Even that was politically incorrect in the eyes of them, because how dare I mention that public policy or war or other things could be responsible for having 180,000 U.S. war veterans sleeping on the streets, So people, they're afraid to look at themselves in the mirror. And I think one of the things that I've always tried to do is create films, and my writing in general, for the broadest audience humanly possible, and the real, I hate the term the common man and woman, but I'm going to use it nonetheless. And try to find this shared humanity that all of us are striving for so desperately.
Well, and you are doing a very good job, because Generation RX was something that I could share with my parents. It's something that I could give to them and say, okay, here, look. A comment my father had was, if everybody wasn't so brainwashed, we'd know better. And he said he knew better, but he just never put it into practice. There's a lot to be said for, I want to say, everything from peer pressure to just wanting to get by to the next day, as this society seems to want to do so desperately. And films like yours bring things to the attention of people that they're not quite willing to accept, but when they watch it, there's no doubt that it's very, very difficult to argue with any points that you're making.
Well, first of all, thank you, because I got goosebumps when you were telling me about your father. I mean, though that's what makes all the struggle and sacrifice, and not having Michael Moore's huge budgets and all those. That's what makes it worth it. So, thank you for that. I think that with Generation RX in particular, that I even to the choice of the narrator, who was David Suchet, who plays Poirot in the Agatha Christie series. That's so famous. He's a famous UK actor. But I chose him because I felt that with the heaviness of the subject material, that I needed someone that could deliver, all of this information, statistics and horror and all, in this very, dare I say, human, but not too emotional way. And David Suchet did an absolutely amazing job with the words that I wrote, and I think that's part of the reason that your father and a lot of other people like him can watch the film. It's not threatening, really. I mean, there are parts that are threatening because they're shocking, but I don't think the film is threatening. It's not trying to say, hey, if you're on Ritalin, you're a bad person. No, it's really, again, a conversation saying, now, after you've watched the film, now you have this breadth of information. You finally have all of the information before you that you need to make a very personal decision for yourself. And if you so choose the drug, may God be with you. I mean, in every way, shape, and form. But if you're concerned, and if there are things that disarmed you or alarmed you, then now you can raise these questions with your doctor, with your teachers, with other social agencies and governments. So that was really my main goal, and I'm so pleased that it touched your father as well.
Oh, and I can remember having my own bouts years ago with issues and going to a doctor and watching him flip through a book as if he could just throw it up into the air, toss up a dart, and wherever it hit, that was the medication that I was going to take. And that, for me right there, it was like I saw it for exactly what it was. He had no clue. He really had no clue. I remember going to the doctor when I was a child. It was a much different situation. We'd go in and we'd talk forever. I can remember sitting there looking at my parents going, "Can we leave now?" And all our doctor wanted to do was talk and know how the family was, and are you eating properly, and are we getting lots of fruits and vegetables? And they actually cared. And now this is only going back, we'll say 30 years. Mm. Now you go into a doctor and they get you in and out as quickly as they possibly can, and they're shoving pills down your throat.
Well,
I'm in the sense now where we don't even go to the doctor. If there was something excruciatingly critical, I'm sure we would. My husband cut his hand open in the summer, and yes, he had to go get stitches. But I looked at him and I said, I bet you I could have done that.
Well, here's the thing. Here's where, yeah, absolutely, you could have. But I think that where we're being ripped off, if you will, and it's a better system in Canada than the United States.
Oh, for sure.
And there's no question about that. Is that where we're getting ripped off is that those of us who are interested and committed to a more holistic lifestyle, and by the way, you can be a cigarette smoker and still be committed to a lifestyle. It's just you need to know that cigarettes rob 100 milligrams of vitamin C from your body each time you light one, and isn't it at least semi-smart to up your vitamin C significantly to try to counteract that? But anyway, where we're getting ripped off is that we don't get the diagnostic information. And this has been a complaint of mine since I first did my first film about so-called alternative or holistic medicines back in 1993, a film called Let Truth Be the Bias. And my complaint is that because of the way that the system is structured, we don't have access to the diagnostic information we need to make the most intelligent choice. And so therefore, if you need blood work done, your option is to go to an ethical, high-achieving, liberal, if you will, medical doctor who will run these tests on you. But in the United States, at least, those tests will cost you $2,000 to $3,000.
Mm-hmm.
The information that's contained in there is invaluable because once you know the balance of various hormones in your blood or the level of vitamin D that's in your body or your B vitamin level or whether you have enough zinc or not enough zinc or minerals in general, or now you can start to use the medicines that are safe and most safe in a therapeutic fashion. And so this is something that we need to force in terms of change. And it's something I'm deeply, deeply committed to making happen somehow through the grace of God and the universe, before I pass on to the next realm, whenever that might be.
You're suggesting more transparency from the medical field then?
And more cooperation, that we indeed, like as a Canadian consumer with your health care, you should be able to go in and get an entire block of very sophisticated tests by the dozens to test your blood work for various aspects. You do various assay, ASSAY tests to test your zinc levels, your mineral levels. You test your hormone levels, your vitamin levels. I mean, all of it. And you give them the test. Tell them I want these 10 tests done on my blood, so that you can get that information into your hands. And now you're really dangerous, Carrie Lee, because now you can talk to a compounding pharmacist. Or I have a dear friend, Amanda, who lives in Ontario, and she works with a natural pharmacy. And you can go to naturopaths, and you can have conversations with researchers and others, and you can find out, how can I dial this in? What does it mean? You can go to a health food store that has a mom-and-pop health food store that's been in business for 30 years and has nothing but integrity and is the point where people come for information. And you have these discussions based on real facts, real diagnostic facts that you have in your hands. That's freedom. That is freedom.
Sorry. It definitely is. And what Canadians don't understand, and I have to stand up and say this, is that we can do this. We can go to our doctors and ask for these tests, and we can go outside of his office afterwards. You just have to request it. And I've never even thought of it until just now, but I know that if I had questions and concerns, I could go to my doctor and talk about it. I haven't seen him in 3 years, and he might raise an eyebrow at me, but there's no reason why we can't. There's naturopaths everywhere. Now, I don't think that in the United States you don't have as much testing that can be done without costing a bundle, where ours are covered. Right. And then you don't have the naturopaths or the holistics that we do, from what I understand, either. Because a lot of things are being taken off the shelves. Not that we don't have the same problem coming up now, but not to the extent that you do.
Well, in actuality, the situation regarding naturopaths is far better in Canada, because there are only, I believe, 12 states where you can get a naturopathic medical degree in the States. But in the context of what vitamin supplements and dietary supplements in general are available, the United States is by far still the most libertarian country in the world in regard to that. And Canada has probably at least 40,000 to 45,000 products that have been taken off the market that are available in the U.S. that are not available in Canada.
Now, I did not know that. I know that they're trying to get Neem off the shelves. It was supposed to be by January 1st, if I wasn't mistaken. I could be misquoting that, but there's absolutely nothing wrong with Neem. It's not hurting anything. If anything, it's doing wonderful things for people, for everything from curing bone cancer to what it does in your garden for you. They're threatening to take off, cinnamon in capsules won't be sold, but you can buy it in powder form and put it into a capsule yourself.
Well, I'll tell you something that again, in my research pertaining to Canada, Carrie, traces back to the 1990s. So, I know what went off the shelves when, and all kinds of products.
I need that list.
I'll give it to you. It's a dire situation. And just as I know we're talking about ARC here and everything else, but while I'm loving Canada, I will tell you that I'm actually producing a 20-minute audio, and then going to produce a short video after that as well about the challenges to what I call medical freedom of choice in Canada. And the audio will be released most likely the first week of March, right, when I'm over at ARC. And then I'm going to work on a video and get that done by the end of March to further alert Canadians about what they need to do and what they need to be aware of and how all these breaches have taken place. You see, you've got a younger generation, and even you and your lovely self are younger than I, and so there's this bridge between the younger generation. They don't know what they don't know. Mm-hmm. So how would they know when I have a 21 and 19-year-old son, so how would they know? My 21-year-old was born in 1990. How, if you grew up in Canada and you're a 21-year-old, how would you have any idea what was taken off the shelves in 1993?
Yeah, no, you'd have no clue. And see, like myself, I don't know, because I was nowhere near where I am now to even care about stuff like that.
Understand. So that's coming out. That'll be something that I'll gladly share with you, and maybe we can follow up or something at some point.
I was just going to say, it'll be good to have you on again to give that a bit of a boost. And I know that all my listeners will be very happy to hear that when it comes out. Now, to get back to ARC just a bit, are you going earlier than the dates to have a little time spent, or are you booked and busy right up until the conference?
I'm pretty busy, but I'm trying to get in there a day or two in advance. And that's what I did last year. And we'll see. I believe it or not, I still haven't bought my ticket, so I'm going to be doing that within the next week. But yes, I most likely will be around 5 to 7 days total, and of course the conference is the 3rd and 4th, so that's Saturday and Sunday of March. So I'm looking forward to it. It's always such a pleasure, and as you say, Karen Sawyer deserves so much praise. This woman is my muse as well as yours, I think, and so many others. And she is the loveliest soul on the planet. And she works so hard, and she really does this for all of us to enable these kinds of conversations that we were referencing 10 minutes ago.
She thrives off of them. We all do to some extent, and she's so happy to be able to bring it to everybody. For those of you that don't know, Karen is the coordinator, the creator of the ARC Convention. She's also the author of A Dangerous Man and Soul Companions. She couldn't be here with us tonight, but she will be back on the show another time, indeed. And for those of you that may have missed it as we were talking, the ARC Convention is being held March 3rd and 4th at the Chapel Arts Centre in Bath, UK. So, no, but you're right. She's doing wonderful work, and to gather all these souls together, and then that my thing was to be in that room, in that energy, with like-minded individuals, all feeding off of each other and being conduits to each other. It's absolutely brilliant.
It is brilliant because you realize that once you're there, that you are with people that as broad as we might be, there is no way that the vast majority of people hold the kinds of beliefs. I mean, you have people looking into alternative energy systems. You have people that are completely into space, and you have other people. I wish I could remember the name of the gentleman whom I followed speaking last year. And I mean, it was just incredible. And then, of course, all the immense spirituality that is represented at the ARC conferences. So it really is an amazing opportunity for people, and it is such a treat to be there. I have a smile on my face the entire time I'm there. I'm just eating it all up, and I'd recommend to anyone, if you can go on Priceline.com or someplace like that and make an offer on a flight to get over there, do so, because you will just be thrilled beyond your imagination.
Yeah, there's something that I have to add that is just beautiful about this as well, is that you're assisting in the shift. Just the collective energy is assisting in the shift of all humanity at each and every one of these conferences. Every little conversation that you're having, this conversation between you and I, conversations on various other radio shows, the documentaries, everything that's coming out, we're all doing our part to assist in this grand shift of humanity into a paradigm that's perhaps a little less like it is right now.
Well, I agree. And I think it's important. And the only way that we can do so is by sitting down again and having a conversation. And when you referenced your doctor earlier and your relationship with your doctor when you were younger, and that's how it was for me when I was a child. And you get used to that kind of treatment. And it's no longer the position where you have 5 or 7 minutes with somebody that doesn't know you and knows nothing about your life or life stresses or children or your eating habits or your anxieties or anything, so that they can make a holistic determination along with you on what the best course is. And so we need these kinds of conversations to occur, and the best and the brightest and the great communicators like yourself and Karen and all the lovely people that are listening that can take this to a higher place and say, look, don't be dismissive. Don't be that way. Let's have a conversation about this. The medical system, just for one, is obviously broken. Our economy is increasingly broken, and we are tying ourselves to things that we as Canadians, we as Americans, we as Europeans and Asians and people from around the earth don't believe in. So why are we assigning the power over to them? We have free will, and we need to exercise it.
I couldn't have said that any better. And I can't agree with you anymore, because it is, and it does. I see there's a huge amount of apathy that creates this problem, but at the same time, we seem to be coming about this point where we're not apathetic anymore. We are standing up. I mean, as much as I know there's a lot out there that are going to say, well, that's a controlled thing as far as the Occupy Wall Streets and whatnot, all the Arab risings, the Arab Spring, I should say. My point being is that not everybody was controlled in these situations. There may have been a select few at the helm that may have controlled stuff, but everybody, I know, going to, say, Occupy Toronto, there are people there that they had no agenda other they wanted to learn, spread their words, and be with like-minded people. And so many good things came out of all these different occupation spring-ups that you saw all over the world, that I can't see it as a bad thing. So we're losing our apathy and trying to find our legs. It feels like we're moving from laying on our backs to crawling.
Well, and it's a critical thing. I mean, I agree with everything you just said. I mean, there was no problem with the OWS movements at all until they became infiltrated. And it's not unlike what happened, and I've written about this in my blog, which if people ever want to visit is at kevinmiller.com. And I've written about this in terms of Canada as well. When you hosted the Gang of Six, the what is it called? I'm losing it right now. But
corporate.
You had the power, all the world powers in for the conference in Toronto, and they shipped.
Oh, the G20.
The G20, yes, thank you.
Yes.
And a lot of the disruption. Yeah, there are a couple of anarchists, and there are people who are angry, and even a few people who are violent. But there are also infiltrators, and there were people that had boots that were issued by the government for their police and SWAT forces that were one of a kind, and there are photographs of them. And this is just the place that we've come to, and they know that they need to portray protesters as anarchists and set the stage through their friends in the media to control the media about the media reporting about these events and the displeasure that citizens are showing with their collective governments.
Now, just a thought. Would you not say that the term anarchist has been kind of mutilated? That anarchists really at the heart of it aren't really all that. I mean, this is my take on it, that the word anarchy is kind of just not needing government, not these violent, mindless people going and crashing and smashing things.
Well, I mean, for me, the anarchist is traced to my youth. So, I mean, it's like... Oh,
yes, I hear you.
So, I mean, I'm thinking Sex Pistols and God Save the Queen and lots of slam dancing and... but no, I mean, seriously, what you say is true. It's been watered down. The people at Faux News create this mirage around what anarchy is. I mean, anarchists are a complex group, like any group is, and there are people who are violent and who want to overthrow the government and want to be able to walk down the street with rifles and whatever, and make it like it's the Old West. So that it's not 100% purity. But the fact of the matter is, the more libertarian kind of an idea is that people are allowed to be that way as long as they're not harming anyone else or getting into someone else's space and violating it. And, the fact that people are smashing and grabbing and all those kinds of illegal acts, well, those people are criminals like anyone else. Whether they're anarchists or just criminals, then so be it. But
there should be no label there. It's just that they've done what they've done and they need a slap. I mean, on the wrist or whatever.
Well, you remember when the big WTO protest went down in Seattle, the battle in Seattle, and that years ago, back in the 90s, that was the first thing that they said about them. They're the anarchists, and this allows us as societies, and particularly the people in control, where now we're going through the silly season of political cycle here in the United States again for our elections, And when they're having the Republican convention in Tampa, or the Democratic convention following that, they'll use this as an excuse to cordon off from 1 mile or 2 miles away the quote-unquote anarchists who are protesting various issues, so that they don't get seen by the media. And what they're doing is eliminating the very kind of things in terms of social change that helped end the Vietnam War here in America, because of the protests at the 1968 Democratic Convention, and the violence and the hippies and the activists and the socially conscious people were trying to bring forth. But now all of a sudden, all those people are not outside the convention. They're two miles away at a safe arm's length, and they don't let the media to you. And if you come any closer than 2 miles, you're in the back of a paddy wagon and spending the night or 2 or 5 in jail, like what happened at the G20. So.
Oh, definitely. I have a friend who is a photographer and just happened to be walking by Union Station to take a couple pictures, because he's a bit of a macabre. He likes the idea of the horror flick, and he had, some really good shots. And they thought he was a terrorist. Mm-hmm. They painted him as it. Well, you're dark-haired and yada, yada, yada. And he just went, wow, I'm gay too.
Right.
There was no, it was just, he was just, absolutely, I have a camera and I'm on a bike, and you think, really?
I mean, so much for the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, eh?
Yeah, exactly. Now we've got the G8 coming up in Chicago very shortly, do we not?
Yes, indeed. And I stayed in this blog. I think it's called Islands of Trouble in Canada. Mm-hmm. Pardon me. And in the blog, I have a line of something along the lines of, if these meetings are so important to have, then why are you holding liberty and democracy hostage? I mean, why not go, take it to the middle of Alberta, yep, somewhere where there aren't hordes of people, or take it to an island somewhere and create a moat around these meetings, and all you very important world leaders can meet and discuss the trials and tribulations of being leaders in the world today, somewhere where you're not going to inflict your narrow ideology and your police mentality upon everyone, that everyone is under suspicion, and that we can suspend willy-nilly the rights under the Charter of Rights and Freedom, or our constitutional rights, no matter where we live, in the name of holding a meeting about democracy. I mean, does it get any sillier than that, really?
No, not at all. Well, we couldn't understand that. I think, if I'm not mistaken, they had the G8 in Barrie, which, if you know, Canada is way out there.
Yes. And
then we had the G20 in the heart of Toronto. And what brain came up with that beautifully wonderful idea where we were going to completely block off an entire half of a city and have rent-a-cops running around like mad and not knowing what to do, half of them? How many of the police force ended up quitting after the G20 happened? How many got lawsuits against them? They're still going on.
Well, do you know something? I have, as you know, many dear friends in Canada, and particularly in Toronto, where I come, once every 5 weeks or so. And
oh, this is good to know. We're only about an hour away.
Oh, that's wonderful. And I have a dear friend who lives in a condo overlooking the tower there. And the, what's it called? The CN Tower? Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so his this beautiful condo, however many floors up, and, perfectly aligned view of the CN Tower. They literally, and obviously there's thousands of people in those condominiums down there, right? And he got a letter that he showed to me saying that he was not allowed to have guests in his condominium during the G20.
They can't do that.
Like heck, because I ended up staying in a hotel a couple of days before and I got out before the G20. But, he showed me this letter and saying you're not allowed, and they were killing cell signals and mobile broadband, and they were killing everything in the area almost. And this is how far it goes, that they really believe that they have the freedom and the power to exert their will over free citizens in a free society to tell them that they cannot have guests in their own condominium that in many instances they paid $400,000 or $500,000 for.
Oh yes. See, this is the thing is that not enough people are standing up, and if not enough people stand up and say, wait a minute, no, you're not allowed to do this. You had said something about, what was it? If we pay for the
studies.
If we pay for the studies, then they should belong to us. Do we not pay for the politicians? Do the politicians' paychecks not come out of our pockets? Then do we not own them?
Yeah, not to mention their pensions.
And their homes and their vehicles and their plane rides and their this and their that and their retreats, and I could go on and on and on and on.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah. I mean, it's this kind of disconnection is happening in Canada that I've been frighteningly observing in America for 30 plus years now. That you know the elected, quote unquote elected officials are not even reading bills before they pass them.
Oh, they can't be.
And if they were, then they could be considered traitorous.
Yes.
You know, again, you know, to your listeners, go look up Bill C-36.
There's so many things hidden in that bill. I took the time. I went and protested Harper when he came into Welland, which is the town over from us. And when I read over that bill, it was like a million things all stuffed into one, hidden under this paragraph and that paragraph. And I walked up to a police officer and I said, so how do you feel about Health Canada having more power than you do? And he just looked at me and went, what are you talking about? And I'm like, oh, you don't know about Bill C-36 and how Health Canada can walk into your home without a search warrant? It would seem to me you guys need search warrants, don't you? Maybe you should go have a conversation with Mr. Harper while he's here. And then he got all cocky with me and had his little say because he just couldn't handle the fact that I had a brain with it, you know.
Plugged into the truth. And again, that audio tape that I'm producing is specifically about this kind of stuff, Carrie.
Excellent.
So
I look forward to that. I make sure that you keep me updated on that, and I'll be sure to have you back on the show if you're game to discuss.
I promise. Thank you.
Wonderful. Now, we've been joined by Kevin Miller, Kevin P. Miller, who is going to be at the Art Convention once again, and that is March 3rd and 4th at the Chapel Arts Centre in Bath, UK. And just so you know, ARC stands for Authentic Research Convention. This is the 2012 edition. It's exciting. There's going to be Pierre Sebec there. Also Maria Kvilhaug, Thomas Sheridan, who you've all heard from on my show the last 3 shows, and Kevin P. Miller. Oh, and also Leo Rutherford. So there's a lot going on. There's also bands that are going to be playing. Karen Sawyer, who is the muse with U Drops, her band The Musers, and All When is going to be playing as well. If you would like to check it out, please go to www.arcconvention.org. And now, Kevin, tell the listeners where they can find you, and then maybe a little bit of what's coming up next for you, past the the audio that you've got coming out in March.
Well, they can get a hold of me. Since we were talking about Twitter, why don't we start with that? My moniker, if you will, is the @ symbol, of course, and Kevin P. Miller. So that's easy. On Facebook, I'm also Kevin P. Miller. And my website is kevinmiller.com. I also have another blog. But people can search for me online, and they can put Kevin P. Miller in quotes, and all kinds of my films and other things will come up. And my YouTube page is, youtube.com/Kevin Philip Miller. And so, I'm pretty easily accessible to all the emails I get and interact with people, and I really enjoy that part of it. And currently, Carrie Lee, thank you for asking, I'm working on rather a follow-up for Generation RX, and I only have a working title right now, but essentially I felt it was important to have this follow-up because, as you know, Generation RX was had to lay out all the problems, the conflicts of interest, the ethical problems, free will and moral responsibility in the age of neuroscience, and all of this kind of stuff. And it didn't leave any room really to talk about any potential solutions, nutritional, alternative, what have you. So we're doing that in this film. And one of the exciting things about that is that I'm even though, it's hard to raise money oftentimes for things like this, it's going to be a dynamite film, and it will be released most likely, I'd say, in June of this year. So,
that's something to look forward to.
Yeah, I'm really thrilled about it. I hope it really has a huge impact, so that people can see that there are other ways around some of these daunting problems that societies are facing everywhere.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, 2012, where we're at right now, it's about solutions. We know the problems. I mean, from 2011 back, it was concentrating on all the problems and trying to muster up a solution. I can't do anything but come up with solutions. That's I think what we need to be striving towards, is understanding that, yes, okay, we see the problem and now we're going to fix it. Not how do we fix it, let's just get her done.
Amen to that.
Well, we're all responsible individuals. When it comes right down to it, we understand that we have to take personal responsibility of ourselves and stop being children to our nanny states, as a few people like to say, because we're not children, we are adults, and it's time we start taking responsibility for ourselves. And a lot of this is not just listening to whatever gobbledygook comes out of your doctor's mouth and actually asking some really hard questions. Myself, I prefer not to go to a doctor. I'll stick to my natural ways. But if it came right down to it, and for some reason I had to know that I would be advocating for myself, because nobody is going to do it for me.
That's the truth. And that's part of what we're talking about, what I'll be speaking about specifically at ARC. So you are the perfect lead-in, because I'm giving a talk called Free Will and the Selling of Fear. And I think that, the thing is, it's not just about medicine, but if you examine it from the medical context, of course, we've always heard the Latin phrase primum non nocere, or first do no harm, for decades. And, it's accepted as one of the precepts of medical ethics, even, going back into the 1800s and 1700s. And while medicine still, sort of kneels down and genuflects before that, we know that science is being falsified and engaging in conflict of interest, and they're oppressing the truth about natural remedies and other ways that can help lead us to the very solutions that you mentioned. So my presentation will be much along the lines of our lovely conversation, which is to connect the dots, examine medical science, the efficacy of medicines, the current state of ethics in Western medicines and Western governments, and how we as consumers can really engage in our healthcare, in our politics, in our environment, and fight for the preservation of things that are important to our free will. And I'm going to give specific examples again on how people can implement that, from protest to accessing research to accessing films and being in touch with our legislators, if you will, and a lot more. So I'm really looking forward to it.
That's fantastic. It should be an absolutely excellent presentation, and I look forward to hopefully seeing it on the internet afterwards, because that's about all I can do this time. But for everybody that's wondering, the weekend ticket is $77 British pounds. For Saturday only it's 44, Sunday only it's 44, and to be announced a bit later, I'm pretty sure there's going to be a virtual convention, and that is something I will be talking to Karen about and announcing a little later on, I'm sure. Now, Kevin, I have to say that I have been a bit of a fan because of my upbringing and having the pharmaceutical company basically surrounding me with both of my parents and my whole family. I don't think there's many people that aren't on some kind of medication. Your work has been fantastic, and it's done a lot to help me. I know that when I told people who I was interviewing, they knew exactly who I was speaking about and what you do, and a lot of people wanted to extend their thanks for doing the work that you do, because the work that you do is so important. It's people like you that help give voices to even people like myself, or say my parents, and it just goes on and on and on. So for everything that you're doing, full appreciation. Thank you so much for the films and everything that you're going to do in the future.
Well, there are those goosebumps again, Carrie. So you're so very gracious. Thank you so much, and know that it means so much to me to hear that, because the only people I'm fighting for are real people who want their stories told and want a new path. They want to carve a new path for themselves, and so my hat's off to you and your family, and I praise what it is that you're doing, this program and everything else that you're doing, to put the truth out there before people, because you're making an impact and you inspire me. So
thank you.
Blessings right back to you.
Wonderful. I in Lakesh. Well, I think that this has been an absolutely wonderful interview. I'm very pleased to have had you on, and I do look forward to having you on maybe a little later, or in February, early March, whenever that film comes out. Not that I'm looking or fishing for a date, but I am looking forward to having you back again. You are on the Sunday, is that correct? Or is it the Saturday?
I'm on Sunday, as a matter of fact. So
okay, so it's going to be yourself and Leo Rutherford that are doing the Sunday convention.
I told Karen Sawyer, my muse, that you just stick me anywhere, and I think I'm on Sunday. So
wonderful.
Every session will be wonderful, though, and the music will be great at night. So I hope you can party with us virtually there.
If I'm not there via plane, I will be there via virtual reality. Do you have any final words for the listeners?
Yeah, keep raising the bar and keep expecting more of yourself and more of your government. In order to be that way, that means you have to be fully informed. And if we want to create change, then we have to be able to educate others in a clean and credible fashion, in a reasonable way, so that people understand it. People get that you don't have any agenda but their own wellness. So keep raising the bar and challenging yourself, and I'll be right alongside you.
Well said. Thank you so much again for coming on to the show. To the listeners, thank you for listening. This is Carrie Lee. You've been listening to Lifting the Veil. Until next time.